Get Gutsy episode number 172 with Melissa Killily on See People for Their Greatest Gifts. Welcome to Get Gutsy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennig, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. A cutting-edge show blending business and spirituality, Get Gutsy serves up a potent blend of stories, lessons, and tips to help you make a massive impact in the world through your soul's work and your inspired life. No more going it alone, no more excuses. The world needs more brave women saying yes to leadership. Are you with me? Good. Let's get gutsy now. Hey, Jenny here. Welcome to another episode of Get Gutsy and Gutsy Coach Week. Hooray! This is Gutsy Coach Week. We are in December of 2017 and we are just serving up a lot of love around coaching and coaches and celebrating those of us who say yes to this calling that we have. As you hopefully know, we are also in the enrollment period for my coach certification program. It is the place to be for spiritual coaches who want to make a difference and a great living with this work. Go check it out, coachtrainingschool.com. We will be closing our doors soon, and now is the time to get in and apply for our January 2018 class, coachtrainingschool.com. Listen, today we've got for you Melissa Killily. Y'all, this woman, she got a voice. She got some things to say. Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Here's a little lowdown on the episode, a little preview. Can a childhood experience or passion really morph into a career path? How can coach training help you in your current business job or your life in general? Those are some of the questions that we explore. And if you are a network marketer or know somebody who is, make sure you listen to this episode or share this episode with them, because Melissa is in network marketing and she talks about how coaching was the perfect addition to her network marketing business. She really holds nothing back in our very candid conversation. We get real about the role alcohol played in both of our young lives. Like, we're going there. We really have a meaningful conversation around this, and you're going to hear me talking more about this in the coming weeks as well. I'm a part of a wonderful women's summit coming up in 2018 where we talk about redefining sobriety. You may not know that about me, but I don't drink. I used to, and I kind of have come to the other side with my relationship around that. So we talk about that. Melissa talks about her journey. I talk about mine. We talk about the power of sharing our stories and releasing external mileposts as indicators that we're on the right track, and instead tuning into our inner guidance. Melissa is a graduate of Get Gutsy Coach Training School. She talks about how that experience provided her the opportunity to get clear on her core values and what she truly wants, and brought her into alignment to create her own internal navigation system for this epic journey of life. She is an extraordinary woman. She is a single mom, and she just has so much wisdom to share with you. So enjoy this episode where I am interviewing Melissa Killily, and we are focusing on seeing people for their greatest gifts.
All right, Melissa, welcome to Get Gutsy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. I feel like, there's just these days when I'm so grateful, like, this is my life. This is what I get to do. I get to, have these amazing conversations with women who've, come through my coaching school, or they, I just know them through this work. I have just so many different types of women on my show. So I'm really pumped to have you on, because I know you've got quite a story and quite a background, and you're going to be able to share it with our audience, which is really, really rad. So I want to start by going back in time and talking about little girl Melissa. When you were much younger than you are now, although you're still very young and got that youthful glow. But let's talk about childhood. I'm really digging starting my episodes here because I've been sharing this in some of the other shows, that I so much traces back to that point, which makes me so much more mindful as a mother to kind of recognize like what memories are getting triggered, for my kids, and what can I do, consciously to give them the best, healthiest, like most beautiful childhood as possible, and knowing like some hard stuff's going to happen too. And that's what shapes us. So let's go back to when you were a kid. First off, where did you grow up?
Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo.
Yeah. So I'm about 2 hours away now in Seneca Falls.
Okay. You're in Seneca
Finger Lakes.
Falls.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Nice. All right. So let's talk about childhood. What was the most amazing part of growing up in Buffalo, New York? Was there just something that really stands out in your mind that was, so fabulous? And as you think about like where you are now, like had some impact on what you're doing now and who you are today?
Absolutely. And I just have to say, like, it's really interesting that you're going here because recently I was gifted a scholarship to do a 12-week creative cluster guided with Julia Cameron's Artist Way.
Nice.
Which I'm sure you're familiar. And I had worked on her book before, but never quite gotten past a certain point. It's like the memories would come up and I would just like shove it aside and I didn't want to go there.
Right.
But a lot of the work in her book is like removing these blocks, right, to our creativity and like really moving forward in our purpose in this life. And so when you ask that question, two things come to mind immediately. One really great memory of Buffalo and growing up is that although my backstory has a lot of obstacle, a lot of challenge, a lot of circumstances that were like so far outside of my control, like being born into a family that we didn't have very much at all. And a lot of really like difficult things to contend with, like mental illness and alcoholism and all of these things around me. But the thing that stands out to me is that I had a number of really supportive communities that uplifted me during that time. And I really just connected with that recently, like that kind of memory of my church community. Like, even though I ended up ultimately leaving the Catholic Church, I called myself a recovering Catholic for many years. That community was super supportive. My school community, once I got into City Honors, which is a fantastic school in Buffalo, that was 5th grade. And I just remember that community really supporting me. Friends, family. Buffalo is definitely one of those beautiful cities where, there's not a lot that was going on back then. Like, it definitely had this sort of post-industrial feel, like things were kind of on the decline. But at the same time, there's not too many people that you'll meet out and about in the world who are from Buffalo that aren't just genuinely good people. So that's one thing I think about. And then the second thing I think about is that this really doesn't have anything to do with Buffalo, but it had to do with me. It was like having this strength of character and this sort of immersion in my own internal world. I was an only child. I had a lot of big dreams. Like, I remember in 2nd grade telling people I wanted to be a philanthropist, and they're like, "You're a poor kid," like with no resources. Like, this isn't going anywhere.
I love it. So you just you had this like knowingness to you.
Yeah, I didn't know how or, what it was going to take to get to that place.
That's
and in
amazing
fact,
you even know that was a word, that was like a thing.
Yeah.
Because I'm advanced. I have a 3rd grader and a 1st grader, and then my daughter who's 3, and I'm like, I don't think any of them know that word at this stage. Wow.
But who knows? Kate may, by the time
you're right. That's my girl. That's my girl. So okay, so I want to be a philanthropist. You were in a certain circumstance, but at that young age, you weren't allowing it to dictate your future.
Right.
That's powerful.
And then from there, my journey takes a lot of twists and turns.
Well, let's dive into that. Let's dive into that, because that's my follow-up question is, okay, we just talked about like these amazing things, these positive things, and there's challenge. I mean, that's just what it is to be a human. So from that period of your life before you were, an adult, what were some of those, like, like the most, or just like that one that you're like, that was really hard. That was, like the ultimate challenge, and it shaped me. What do you have to say there, Melissa?
Wow. I have to get gutsy with this answer, which this is really new for me, owning this part of my story. But I would say my relationship to alcohol over the course of my life was really like something that shaped me and ultimately made me into the person, the leader, the strong woman that I am now, because I think I used that. I used alcohol as sort of like this way to hide from my greatness. When I was young, it's like I couldn't quite figure out what I was good at, and so I just got really good at partying. And I was painfully introverted. And people really didn't, at least in my family and in my circle of friends, didn't really get that. So that it just wasn't acceptable that I wanted to recharge on a Friday night at home with a book, or that I'd rather wander around a museum than go out and party. And so I ultimately kind of just gave in, because I wanted to fit in somewhere. I wanted to belong somewhere, but I also wasn't prepared to accept my truth and take responsibility for some of the things that I wanted to do in this life. And that took a really long time to work through that battle, for sure.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you remember, because I have a very similar backstory and past, how old you were the first time you had a drink?
Yeah, that was like 10.
10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like some kind of family gathering. Okay.
Family gathering. Just, I had an uncle who was like, oh, here, I think it was like a Jack Daniels cooler or something like that.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah.
Coolers.
Yeah.
Country coolers, I think they called them.
Country coolers. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Country coolers.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, I totally get that. Did you get like a buzz off of that? Did you kind of have the feeling, and then it was like from that point forward, or was it a little bit later that you then were like, oh, here's where it is, and you could step into kind of a community? For me, the community happened in high school. I wonder how for you, or it's just like, this is what happens, like this is what one does on weekends, and you can go get this feeling that maybe you didn't know how to find sober, because people around you were like doing this thing. Just curious, your history with that.
Yeah. So I think that the first, it's even more than a few times. I would say for the first like year or two, like maybe few years of having the exposure, what I was exposed to then was really just the cultural acceptance of it, right? Like, even my family was just like, I mean, not my mom, but but like my aunts and uncles and things like that, they're just like, whatever. So it became acceptable, right? And I was watching behavior that was acceptable in adults. So that was just kind of like setting the stage, right? And it wasn't until high school. And I would say even, like probably like junior year maybe, where it was really, it became a thing.
Okay.
To be out on the weekends and that was just the norm. It was just the norm. Or to like skip school and go like have cocktails at a friend's house or something. And we weren't even the bad kids, right? Like we were like the totally good kids.
Like, girl, I've told a lot of stories around this for myself. There's more stories that I can tell around it, but I get it. And I was one of like the top students and the leaders, and yet there was still this huge curiosity on my part to be in that. And I love what you said, that you used alcohol as a way to hide from your greatness. That's very wise. So just to kind of like close the loop on that, where or at what point did you kind of come face to face with that, with alcohol, and realize I don't need this to hide from my greatness any longer?
Yeah. So I'm 40.
Mm-hmm.
So just a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
July 25th, 2015 to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a particularly, dramatic incident with my ex, and it was just like this flash before my eyes of all of these incidents
Mm-hmm.
over time that all came to be because of alcohol.
Yes.
So nothing terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I never got to a point in my life where like I felt dependent, or I woke
Mm-hmm.
up in the morning and I had to have a drink. And you
Right.
know, I would even go months of not going out to have drinks with friends or anything like that.
Right.
But the point was the unpredictability of the outcome when it was in my life.
Yes.
Right. And then being able to like tie that string, like weave
Mm-hmm.
that all the way through my life and go like every negative thing that's ever happened
Yes.
has revolved around it.
Oh my God.
So it was a conscious decision to just say like, I don't want it in my life anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I really truly believe, you know, my greatest gift as an outcome of that is my sons, because I was on a wellness journey at that point. I had some undiagnosed, unexplained, not undiagnosed, but unexplained infertility for many years, that related to celiac disease. And I was gluten-free at that point and getting really healthy, working out a lot, working on my spiritual side as well. I was in yoga teacher training. And so at that point I was like, this is the one thing that's left that's out of alignment. So let it go. And I remember my teacher saying that to me at one point during our teacher training, like, you're going to have moments in your life where you realize this one thing is left out of alignment. You know, this, maybe it's your relationship to sex, or it's your relationship to alcohol, it's your relationship to something. And I figured that out. And Jenny, literally less than a month later, I found out I was pregnant for Jack.
Beautiful.
So, you know.
Oh my gosh. That was it. You were out of alignment. And girl, it's so funny. I was writing down your date, July 2015. For me, it was May 2015 when I released alcohol. I'm also 40. Wow. Isn't that cool? And same. It was just like, I had gone a long time since I had been like drunk. I mean, that was like my teens and my 20s. And then once I met my husband, Steven, that's when I cleaned up my act, because I was like, oh, he doesn't play that game. Every other relationship I was in, like, we played those games together. And, you know, and that's when the arguments would come, and it was not going to get us to the kind of life that I wanted to have. And so once I met him and started having kids, like, it was rarely part of my life, but I had that moment, and it wasn't tied to like a big blow up or anything. It was just, for me, I was about to go to this, gala for my kids' school, like a really beautiful, you know, like dress up and all. And I knew there'd be open bar, you know, and I had to like just have conversations with myself. Like, okay, you know, there's going to be alcohol there. Like, I used to have an issue if there was open bar, because I'd be like, it's free. If I don't drink it, I'm like losing money or something. And so, and I would get myself into trouble, like in my earlier days for sure. And so that night I said, okay, am I going to have like maybe 1 glass or 2 glasses of wine? Maybe do like a white wine spritzer. I started doing white wine spritzers because they were just less alcohol. And, you know, and because my body just really couldn't do any version of a hangover at that stage. It was just like the mental chatter was so destructive. Like, I would be so mean to myself, and I just couldn't be Jenny, the best Jenny I could be. I couldn't be the best mother and all that. And so I remember it was just like, I just had this realization. I'm like, I'm done. Like, why would I even do that? The next day was Mother's Day. I was like, I don't want to have any iota of like alcohol in my system on Mother's Day. I just don't want to be that person. And I'm like, I'm finished. I am so done. And then I went away to this business event, and a few days later, and it just became even more clear. My Uber driver was like a recovering alcoholic, and he told me like all these stories. He was such a great guy. And I was like, oh, like all these things kept happening. I'm like, I'm free. I'm free. It was just that whole time of my life for me, alcohol was like a crutch. It was me. It was like instant confidence when I walked into a room. That's what it was for me, because there was a piece of me that didn't feel confident without it. You know, I didn't feel like, I didn't feel cool enough without it. I didn't feel like I belonged in the room if I didn't have it, or like maybe people liked me better if I was like a little inebriated than if I was just like Jenny. And I got to the point like I like myself better sober than I do drunk. And so it was this wonderful kind of evolution. I love hearing your story, and thank you for sharing that. You know, yeah, go ahead.
I have to say two things really fast. One is, I'm glad you shared your story again, because I'm sure that there is someone who's watching that needs to hear it, right? But I will tell you the reason why I am okay and feel wonderful sharing my story is because you sharing your story on a previous podcast is what gives me permission to, right? It's like, we never know when we shine that light who is going to be deeply affected by that.
Totally.
And then the second thing is, how timely is it right now? Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness, right? I feel like this theme of belonging is such a huge critical one right now, right? And so like it's just this is a topic that could be explored for, you know, days and weeks and months on end. And this is where a lot of healing needs to take place for so many people. So just wanted to touch on that.
I so appreciate you saying that. And I recently finished Brene's book. It freaking rocked me. And who was I talking to? Oh, I met this guy who was giving a talk about like preparing for, you know, educational testing. You know, my kids are like way far from that, but still. And he was, and I was like, have you read Brene's book? Like I had this like one-on-one. you know me, because you worked with me, but you know, he was sharing his story, and then there was this other piece, and I was like, that's why you're coming out more with your message, because he almost died. He had this like major cancer scare, and I was like, that's why, because you've come face to face with the valley of death, and you're just ready to go out even stronger with your message and your mission. Because that's my fascination, is like, that's why I ask about childhood stuff. Like, I'm like, tell me your thing. Like, there's something in there. There's something in there. Sometimes it wasn't in childhood. It's like, it happened a year ago. You know, I had like the cancer scare. I had this or that. But it's true. The more that we share stories, the more that we share like, hey, I thought, and it's so important that we talk about alcohol, and, you know, anyone who's listening who has a positive relationship with it, great, go do that. Like I always say to people, I'm like, go have a margarita for me. I can't do that. Okay.
Right.
But all of these colleges now are banning Greek life on their campus, because I was talking to my dad about this. He's visiting right now. You know, alcohol often, especially when you get into the hands of young people who don't have respect for it and they don't understand the power of it, it can lead to really, really dangerous places, even death. And it happens often with fraternities and these hazing things. I mean, kids die. Like kids die because they don't realize like this is it. I mean, it's toxic. It is toxic for your system when used in quantities that are too large, and it needs to be discussed, because I think what people are looking for, like you said, the belonging, especially in these, you know, fraternities, when they want to have these like, it's called, I don't know why you have to call it hazing, just call it like a beautiful ritual. Like you want to come together, you want to connect, you want to really understand this feeling of brotherhood or sisterhood for sororities or kind of organizations, but you don't have to do it through destructive use.
Right.
Toxic substance, you know,
right.
A toxic chemical, a toxic thing that is alcohol. And that's so much of the work that I do around, you know, ritual, like what I do in my, you know, coaching, what I do with my clients, with my students in my retreats. We bring in ritual. And for anyone who's been at my lab gatherings, I don't have alcohol there. Right. It's not because I think it's bad. I just think it's not necessary to achieve what it is that you're looking to achieve. Right. So I just think it's powerful that we have these conversations for those who have struggled with alcohol, or who realize like it's just not working for you, that there is life outside of it. And you can be that rebel in your friend group who's like, you know, I can still have my friends, but I don't need to go drink like 3 bottles of wine to connect with my girlfriends, or to feel like I have unwound from, you know, a really full-on week, which was what so many of us are kind of taught. And so It's a matter of saying, what is true for you? What is in alignment for you right now? And that is what you discovered for yourself, Melissa. And it allowed you to then become this mother. You know, when you just struggled with infertility and all these things that just your body was saying to you, this doesn't work for me.
Right, right, right. And the most powerful feeling of all, touching back on Brené's book, that discovery that at the end of the day, the most important belonging we have is to ourselves.
Yes.
And when you can stand so firmly grounded in that truth, that is one of the most powerful feelings that you can possibly have, but also pass on to others.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
It's amazing.
Totally. And to know that you can find that, for me, it was like, because it wasn't just alcohol for me, it was also drugs, social drugs. And because I was craving a feeling. I was also grieving, my sister died when I was a teenager. And for many people, and coaching does really get into these depths. I do this with my clients. I mean, it's fascinating. We are so petrified to be with ourselves, to just be alone with ourselves, to be sober with ourselves, to be like, oh, this is me. And like you said, when we can really just be with who we are and see ourselves, look at ourselves in the mirror, and like, we're not perfect. Maybe you've got a blemish here. You did something yesterday, like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, or I could have done it differently. But you can love yourself. And that is just so the root of, I think, what you do, what I do, what those of us who are called to, helping healing professions is really at the core. So for everyone tuning in, just know that if you're dealing with something right now that's just not working, that's out of alignment, it is up to you to make that shift. It will fucking feel scary. You'll feel like you're in the wilderness. You're like, I'm the only one doing this. And you're like, actually you're not. And even if so, it's like, I love what she says in her book. She's like, yeah, the wilderness is where all the great parties happen. You're like, all your other wilderness people are like, oh, you too? This is rad. Because I had to step away from, the popular convention, maybe we're all like, where you feel like the masses are, but the magic is happening in the wilderness. And it's when you can step into that for yourself. You're like, whoa, just watch out. So Melissa, okay. So how did you discover what you were meant to do? Let's look at kind of the work, your sacred work, the career path. For many tuning in, they figured it out, or they're wanting to take that next step. And others are like, still kind of like, I'm trying to figure that out. So how did you figure that out for yourself, of what you're meant to do, and really hunkering in on your sacred work?
I think I've always known, I've always had this this deep desire within me to do exactly the thing that I talked about, being the beauty of being back in Buffalo as a kid, right? Like to create community, to create connection, to be a catalyst, to bring people together over, over even the most challenging things, just to create change and better the world, right? To leave this place better than we found it. But I didn't always listen, right? I think for so many years, I was listening to the norm. I was listening to convention. I was listening to that, I'm going to lisp now, listening to the what I like to refer to, I think it might have been Noam Chomsky who first said it, like the myth of meritocracy, in his book on Miseducation. We have to at some point like uncouple ourselves from, having to do these things at certain points and have these external mileposts that tell us, whether or not we're on track in life. Right. And honestly, Jenny, I think the first time that I really got super crystal clear, I've done a lot of things in my life that have helped to bring me forward on that path of what my deep calling is and what my work is. But I think the thing that really helped me embody it and really helped me fully understand it and do it so intentionally is going through your training school, for sure. Really getting clear on the things I wanted to feel and experience in my life, and to get clear on what my core values are. And so one of the things I talk about a lot, so this weekend I was at this conference that was for emerging women leaders, right? Millennial women making moves, right? It was called Empower, Embellish, and Elevate. And what I was talking about was this idea of creating your own internal navigation system. Right? Like, I love talking about like the epic journey of life, right? So like how do we develop that internal navigation system so that we're not always relying on what's outside of us to tell us whether or not we're okay or we're on track or we've accomplished something great. I've accomplished something great if I get up in the morning and I can create a day around my core values.
Right.
I've been successful when I'm asked to add one more thing to my, ever creative balancing act. And I can discern whether or not that thing is in alignment with those values and say yes or no.
Yes.
Right.
That's
not to say
win.
Yeah, it's great because you could just go like, oh, this would look great on my resume, or this isn't going to bring me money, so I'm not going to do it. But the reality is it might be calling you deeply because it's deeply aligned with your work, right? You might not get paid, it might not matter on your resume. But if it's fulfilling you and it's driving you further in your life's purpose, then that's it. So long answer to a very clear question, which is it was in your training school that helped me really begin to bring it all into alignment in an intentional way.
Beautiful. So at that point, when you joined Get Gutsy Coach Training School, you had been in direct sales for a period of time, which you're still in direct sales. You've done well in that space. So what was it about, the pathway of coaching that called out to you as being, synergistic with the business you had already built in direct sales?
So mostly that's twofold. One, so I've been in direct sales for 10 years and you're absolutely correct. I mean, this is my financial vehicle. This business allows me the ability to create time freedom in my life, and very soon the financial freedom to continue doing all of the great work out in the world that I want to do. But number one, you have to be a great coach in direct sales, because it's not even just direct sales; it's network marketing, which takes that one level beyond that. It's not just the sharing and selling of products. It's bringing people into the business to help them accomplish their dreams. And that definitely requires some very honed coaching skills. And not everyone is prepared for that. And I don't think that when you have huge goals and you want to create massive momentum that you can rely on chance. Right. So I think adding something like this in can be spectacular just for that. But then there's the second piece of it, which is, there's more work that I want to do out in the actual field of network marketing and the world at large. But in network marketing, I feel like 21st century, this is a profession, right? And there's a lot of people who are out there still treating it like, I'm going to use a name, but don't take this personally, and don't anyone watching take it personally, but like the Tupperware lady down the street, buy my Tupperware and then go home.
Right.
This is a field that is being studied. This is a field that is being developed. This is a field that's being up-leveled in major ways. And so what I really love doing is I love coaching people in this field specifically to deeply understand themselves and their dreams so that they can clearly articulate it and get out in the world and do this in a way that has integrity and value. And creates a shared community so that, I might have one business, you might have another, but we can work together because we are sisters in this field of network marketing. Right. Where for so many years it's been like, oh, she's doing that thing or this person's doing that thing. And I can't talk to her because she's not a prospect. She already has her own business. No. We have to do the same thing that coaches do in the world of coaching. We have to do the same thing that doctors do in the world of medicine. We have to create that community together. So that's a second piece to it, altogether. And so actually I would add a third, which is just on a personal level. I feel like helping people get really quickly pointed on their life's purpose and being able to articulate that message is something I treasure. So I do that on a daily basis.
Yes.
With or without a coaching title. Right. It's just like I laser beam right in and I'm like, okay, so what about this? And then get that aha moments of,
Yes.
never thought about that. I see people for their greatest gifts, you know, and I can mirror that back. And with the skills that I've been given through your school, I'm able to do that in a really authentic and organic way, rather than just being the person who walks up and I'm like, you know, poking and prodding.
There's something here. That is a beautiful way to say it. I had that experience. Like, you just made me realize, like, that's what I was doing yesterday. We were at this great little gem of a restaurant that I just have driven by a few times, but I didn't even know like what it was. You know how that happens. It's not in our town. It's a few towns away. And we were going to our way home from my son's hockey game, and like, oh my God, we were hungry. And like, what is that? Like, just go see. I'm like, they have a sign that says lunch and dinner. Like, it's lunchtime. Let's go see. And this guy kept kind of like, is a couple, two guys, and they were so cute, and they were kind of like looking over, and he's like, all of a sudden he goes, you just look like somebody I went to college with. Like, I haven't seen her in 20 years. And where did you go to school? You know, and I'm like, University of Florida. He went to Cornell. So I was not her, but you know, it was cool. It's like, I'm representing her. You're supposed to reach out to her. You know, like, she has a message for you and all that kind of stuff. But he was telling me more about their life, and they live in our area like part-time, which we have a lot of people who do that. They're not able to be here like full-time, although many people want to. You know, they still have to do the New York City thing and kind of sharing. And I'm like, well, what about that? You tell me about business. I'm like, oh, you could totally do that. You know, I'm like, I naturally just do that because I see possibilities where other people see obstacles. Like, other people like, well, that can't work. So exactly. It's like what you said. You can laser in on it. And when you have, most of us, not all, but I see a lot, you know, those who come through our coaching school. There's so many who are just naturally gifted at this. Like, they just have it. You have it. And when you step into a container to further develop mastery over this, to realize that there's actually like a process, and there's real skills and tools here. It's not just me being me that's doing this. There are tools that I have in my kit that I didn't even realize were there, but they're called something, and I can actually bring them out and be intentional about what I'm bringing out when, and it makes us just so much stronger in all of our relationships and all of the places that we're showing up in the world. And that's the beauty of coaching, whether it's to plug in deeper into the place that we already are. For you, it was network marketing. And I think what I'm sensing from you is that you're seeing opportunities over and above what you already have within your business. Like, oh, industry-wide. Like, you have an opportunity industry-wide, because where it started in its humble beginnings, it's like, it's come so far. This is like a legit career path. This is, you know, people have like advanced degrees, and they're leaving those fields to come into network marketing because it's going to provide them more of what they're looking for across the board in their lives. And you're realizing you have an opportunity to really educate and inform and inspire, not just within the business that you're in, but across the board. And that's fantastic that you're seeing those opportunities for yourself.
Yeah, it's super exciting. You know, and honestly, Jenny, I could have had none of those things. I could have been still working my 9 to 5, you know, at Seneca County, running my $20 million budget. And the value of going through coach training school would have simply been the deep dive that it gave me for myself, right? It's like, those of us who, you know, who really understand that rich internal world that we have, you know, can spend years, you know, going to this coach or that therapist or this counselor. But you can accelerate the process and really take it to a much deeper level in the kind of container that you create with Get Gutsy Coach Training School, right? It's because you have the intrapersonal piece, you have the interpersonal piece, and then you have the transpersonal piece of like, how am I going to use this now to inform how I show up in the world? And I feel like so much of the field of counseling and therapy often stops. It's like we take the deep dive inside, we talk it out with the counselor or the therapist, but there's never this, okay, now what? Like how do I use this to inform how I show up? that is what makes the difference. And that was huge.
Thank you for saying that. And it's so true. I love therapy. I worked with therapists up here for several years, and I stopped my treatment because I was like, I accomplished what I went there to accomplish. And I'm sure there'll be something down the line that I know where to find her should I need that additional support. But I recently got back in touch and shared something with her. I was like, I just wanted you to see, like what you said, kind of how I took this out into the world. Like how I'm applying.
Got goosebumps.
Yeah. And she was so grateful. It's not necessarily how that relationship is set up, but we have that kind of relationship. So I went back and did that. That's what I love about coaching is like, we provide that beautiful environment, that beautiful container to go inward, to hash stuff out, and then to go and live it in the world, to be that change we wish to see in the world, get those course corrections that we need because shit comes up. I mean, you level and you level. And I'm so grateful that the coaching modality exists because I actually wanted to be, when I was in corporate, like going, oh, I need something different. I was like, if I could do it all over, I'd be a therapist because I was working with a great therapist in New York at that time. I was like, oh my God, all that schooling, all that. Plus, I don't know if I can sit in the room all day and listen to people say things about what they're about or angry about. Because I'm like an action taker. Be like, all right, we've been talking about this for a few weeks now. We gotta move on. Okay, like we're good. We've healed it. Let's go. Are you healing? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, let's move. And so I wouldn't be a good therapist because I'm not patient.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a point that I'm like, let's go.
Right.
Time's of the essence. We only have one life. So, just for those people who are tuning in, who are helpers, who realize that they have like this mission, they have this work they want to do. Coaching is such a wonderful field. And, it's really my mission to educate that it's here, that it exists. Like for you with all the work you want to do with network marketing, how you're plugging in coaching to the mix, such a beautiful synergy there. For me, it's really just helping those who are meant to be served by this pathway of coaching, like the future Melissas of the world, to say, hey, this world exists. It is amazing. Yes, it is work. And if it is your life's work, then you can't lose because you're going to apply it into who you are as a leader, a mother, a wife, a human, a woman, a worker, a business owner, an entrepreneur. Like anything that you do, coaching will help amplify who you are in this world and help you help more people. Oh my gosh. So Melissa, how can people find you? If they want to get in touch with you, they want to know more about Melissa and all that you do, where do you want to take them?
Easiest place is on Facebook. I feel like Facebook is definitely my jam. Right? Like when I see people trying to master so many different forms of social media, and God bless them, but I feel like, I just want to get good with what I love, and Facebook is definitely what feels good to me. I'm beginning to show up on LinkedIn more so now. I think when I left finance, I kind of divorced myself from that world for a little bit. And now I'm feeling the call to come back. But yeah, just reach out on Facebook. There's only one of me. There's only one, so right?
Okay, we'll put the link on our show notes page. You can go to jennyfenning.com, search for Melissa, and this episode will come up and you will be good to go. Oh my gosh, Melissa. Okay, so 2 more questions. 1, someone's listening. They're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm called to this coaching thing. I want to do Get Gutsy Coach Training School, but I'm a little, nervous and, this investment in myself. What guidance would you give somebody who's on the fence?
There's no better investment that you can make, right, than in yourself. And I feel like if any of us who jumped in were to say that we didn't feel fear in the beginning, like we'd all be lying, right? Because there's fear on some level, and there's and then there's all of the things that we talk about during the course of our work with you. Fear is excitement without the breath. You can work your way through that fear, and what comes out on the other side is so absolutely beautiful and transformative that it's worth every moment. And I don't think I could say it any better than to say like how valuable it is on every level. It's valuable to my current business. It's valuable to my future goals and dreams. It's valuable to who I am as a person and how I show up in the world. And so, if any one of those things were a goal for someone looking at school, like do it, like just do it. Right.
Just do it. Be like nice.
There's never like, you know, the extra money that's just sitting there. There's never the extra time that's just sitting there. If there is, then you really know you're supposed to do it. Right. But that kind of friction, like, do it anyway, right? Do it anyway. To ourselves that we are worth it. And that is surely one of the first steps to our own, like, healing in our own wellness journey.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Right. We've got to invest in ourselves. And like you said, I've learned too, there's never a perfect time. And it's usually when people, like, when it comes across their radar, they're like, oh, I want to do this. That's the time. I've seen it time and time again. It's just good to know too for coaching that sometimes people are like, oh, I really want to work with you, but I'm going to come back to you. And they really don't. It's like, this is the time, because the process is to get through that fear. It's to get you to that other side, to realize that you absolutely are worth it, and that there is magic waiting for you. There are miracles waiting for you, but you got to walk through that door. Melissa, you are a gutsy woman. I love this entire conversation. I could just talk to you all day. I want to know, though, the answer to this finale question. What is the gutsiest move you've ever made, and how does it inspire your life and work today?
I think the gutsiest move that I've ever made is truly walking away from the 9-to-5 to pursue my dreams. Right? It's so easy to experience the fear of not having the regular paycheck, not having the health insurance benefits, not having all of this safety net to rely on. But the reality is, like, that safety net is a false illusion anyways, right? Because when you're not living a life that is in alignment with your core values and your own dreams and desires, ultimately it's going to show up in other ways that are going to cost you greatly. For me, it showed up in my health. It showed up in my overall, like, mental, emotional well-being. But my health specifically was just constantly, like, a challenge for me, showing up in autoimmune problems and all kinds of, interesting symptoms. And so making that move really was my first step of acknowledging, like, girl, you're worth it. Right. And it's not to say it wasn't hard, and it's not to say that it's been a straight line ever since, right? Like, there have been ups and downs in my business. And I would say, like, you know, after my son was born, so I left in fall 2014, and I found out that I was pregnant with Jack in August 2015. So then he arrives in April, and Dad and I had some really tough stuff to work through. So I ended up moving out, and we're, doing our own thing. And so as a single mom with a child now to be responsible for, and a business that I can't work very much because I'm home taking care of this baby. And I was really sick after he was born. I had a lot of really challenging circumstances. But what I had was the knowledge that I could build my entire life around the most important things in front of me. Right. And that if I could just maintain that faith, that we would be fine. And it took, going through Get Gutsy Coach Training School. It took going through, and all of the relationships that unfolded from there, by the way, like, I never would have connected with some of my coaches that I've embraced and worked with since, both as a student and as a collaborator. Right. But it was a deep dive during that time. And I knew that, like, that was the most amazing thing that I could do while he was sleeping at night or while he was napping during the day, was to really just, like, do the work. Right? Like you always say, I love it. The work is the way, period. So how that has informed, like, my life now is I have the time freedom. I don't have the ability to hide from myself anymore. I don't have the ability to hide from that greatness.
When you look at that alcohol, you're like, oh. And when you realize things, the personal growth path, it's like I say, you can't unrealize what you realize. Once you step into this road, it's like a friendly warning sign, like, oh, just FYI, if you do choose this road, it's going to be the most amazing, humbling, intense, powerful, transformative experience. You're not going to recognize yourself in the end, because you're going to be like more you than you ever were, because in the past we were wearing these masks. We were trying to put on these things, these like disguises, so that people couldn't see us for who we truly were, because deep down we are afraid of our greatness. We're more afraid of our power than we are of our own, weaknesses. And so I'm so there with you.
I have to add one more thing, just because I absolutely love him. I just picked up Lewis Howes' book, The Mask of Masculinity.
Okay, I've seen that. I'm really happy that he wrote that book. Right on time. You couldn't have timed it better. Go Lewis. He knew. He was like psychic or something, of what was going to be happening.
I know.
Like insane. Mm-hmm.
How that relates to my most gutsy move, though, and how I'm showing up in the world, is that the other piece that happened for me is, for the first time in my life, I've been able to embrace my fullness, my wholeness. I feel like, and Jenny, I can only imagine that you experience something similar, but when you're working in these powerhouse fields that are predominantly men, you tend to live in that space, right? Like that, driven by the goals and the power and the external kind of stuff, where I feel like I've been able to like take that mask off, right?
Yeah.
And the feminine is able to like step forward and be mom and be the woman and embrace that softness, that vulnerability, because ultimately that's what creates a leader, right? It's not just the drive and ambition.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Shout out for that book. I definitely want to check that out. And that's another piece too, I'll just kind of share this as we wrap up. Coaches, a lot of coaches write books, and, Lewis is a coach. He has a podcast. He's written a few books now. I too have written a book called Get Gutsy. That's what inspired the creation of Get Gutsy Coach Training School. So for those who are listening or watching and who feel like they have a book in them, or they already have this book out there, the container of coaching is just like, it gives you this ultimate creative expression in the world. And so I love when I see, coaches who are like publishing these books, and they're publishing with like major publishing houses and like really doing it. Or you can self-publish like I did with my first book. It's just the idea that we have a message to get out there, and it is our responsibility to do it. Coaching gives you one pathway to get that message out there. Network marketing is another pathway. But when you plug in this skill set, this energy, this magic of coaching, you can go wherever you desire to go with your sacred work. And so that is my hope for everybody who is tuning in right now. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here and sharing your wisdom, sharing your journey.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you in Get Gutsy Coach Training School. Proud to have you as one of our graduates. And to everybody tuning in right now, make sure you go to coachtrainingschool.com. Check it out. We really do have the best school for spiritual coaches ready to make a difference and a great living. This is Jenny Fenig sending you so much love, light, and faith as you get gutsy. I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Get Gutsy with Jenny Fenig. Gutsy leaders unite and ignite.